You may recognize the Smash Squad Wolf Division name from 1075, but we have migrated to Kingdom 1254. In this video, I'm going to talk about things that I did leading up to the migration that were really important, things you need to know about doing a big migration, and last but not least, I'm just going to give you a quick tour of the alliances that are in the kingdom now, and man, it is looking really good. But before we begin, allow me to take a moment to tell you about the sponsor of this video, Infinite Galaxy. In Infinite Galaxy, you explore the vastness of space to claim territory, battle fierce foes, and yes, take down other players. In this game, you'll be building a collection of flagships. You'll use those to wage war with your collection of war ships, whether it's the sprightly frigate, the mid-sized destroyer, or the massive cruisers. Your fleet will go head-to-head against opponents in space combat and in the campaign. But it wouldn't be much of a fleet without its crew. Your crew will help define and customize the way that your team works together as you build out the most amazing space station the galaxy has ever seen, building up and constructing things from your headquarters to your military center to make sure you're ready for the next encounter. Along the way, you'll do a ton of research, advancing your space station's capabilities in both situations against players and in situations that help you build up and get stronger. What happens next in this game? Well, my friends, it's entirely up to you. I am still enjoying Infinite Galaxy almost a year after the game was released, and since that time, they have put a ton of new modes into the game. We've got an Alliance versus Alliance thing. We've got a Nebula versus Nebula that's like server versus server that's very, very fun. If you want to join us, download the game using the link in the description, and you can play with me in Nebula 13 and with the Smash Squad. Again, select Nebula 13 after you create your first account. You go create a new one. You can pick your Nebula, and then you can play with us, and man, this game is very fun. You may recognize the Smash Squad blue and the SW tag that's on our forts over here, but we're in a brand new kingdom, and there's a lot that I want to talk about. Now, first of all, you probably know that when you go to migrate to a new kingdom, there's a bunch of things that must be true. You need to have spent down your resources, you need to have enough passports, and more. And of course, that list of things is given to you when you smash the immigration button. Right now, I actually have more power than this kingdom will allow, so I can't actually show that to you here, but you get the idea. Now, when you're going to migrate, you have to have at or below the number of resources that your storehouse can hold. So in order to accomplish that, my recommendation to you will be to just transfer all of the resources above and beyond your storehouse to somewhere else. The game will not actually let you transfer below your storehouse limits anyways. So you just transfer away, and then you'll have a full storehouse to bring with you. You'll want to make sure that you don't collect your resource buildings, okay? Don't collect these so that they have the full amount of resources so you can smash those out as soon as you've migrated. You don't want to collect your daily quests because those give some resources as well. Just have all of that lined up for a nice migration. And because we were migrating to a kingdom where we were really stretching on getting in all the players we wanted to get into the kingdom, we needed to do a double hospital fill. This is pretty ridiculous. But we had KVK capacity for our hospitals, and we filled them to the brim, and then went to home kingdom, and you can't do anything. You queue up the healing, and anything you do, you're going to get dead troops. So you just chill. The only resource you would gather leading up to a migration is gold, and the reason I say that is that you're going to spend down your gold doing some crafting. Now, on my farm, I actually went and I made a lucky coin. Of course, I wasn't lucky, no proc. On my main account, which I'm showing you now, for Trajan, I put on a new helmet over here. I made this gold helm of the Eternal Empire. Of course, I did not get a proc, gosh darn it. But I spent down my gold between the sort of combat-related stuff and also some crafting gear. Spend all the gold that I had, spend the resources down, and the rest, of course, I just kind of transferred off. One last thing that I did, by the way, to sort of spend down my resources in a way that benefits me, was to use some extenders and to queue up a bunch of T5 troops. If I had more resources open, I would have potentially done more troops. But in general, throughout KVK, I mean, obviously I wasn't ripping open huge amounts of resources without actually needing them. You only open what you need, maybe 100 million of each at a time. That way you're not, at the end of KVK, stuck with just a bunch of open resources you could have had in token form. But perhaps the more important thing to talk about that was like really harrowing, and I honestly almost didn't even get my, my farm, my 67 million power farm into the kingdom. The thing that was more harrowing, in part because we were on the edge of being in Imperium, and because of the way that migration works, is the 1 minute cooldown that a kingdom has for bringing in a new player. This was maddening. This was absolutely maddening. When we were migrating to the kingdom, you're smashing the immigrate button over and over and over and over, and the game will tell you, even though you're ready to go, you're like, yes, I agree, spend the passports, let's go. You go through all the menus, and the game is going to tell you, oh, sorry, somebody has migrated in the last minute, try again soon. Only one player can migrate per minute, and it drove me insane because people are trying to get in their farms. We had, over 200 people migrating. So if over 200 people were migrating, I think it was closer to like 250 or 300. I don't know the actual number that were coming to the kingdom. I think every alliance was bringing in 30, and we brought in 150. That's at least 280 players, plus academy alliances, plus farms. So that's at least, right? If everybody has one farm, we're talking about at least 560 migrations into the kingdom if you include farms that are migrating in. It was a harrowing process because 3 teams in this kingdom had Arc League, and they were going to heal their hospitals. And once they healed their hospitals, that was it. So we basically had like a 12-hour window from when KVK ended to execute this migration, and then 3 alliances were healing their hospitals to go play Arc League, and at that point, it's GG. We're not leaving Imperium, and I don't know when this kingdom will leave Imperium. I mean, we'll see. That may be a feat. They did it this time, even though they were the number 3 kingdom before KVK started by power. And I don't know where we'll end up now, because like so many people lost so much power to make this migration happen. Thank you, by the way. I appreciate you. That like, it's just going to take a while to recover. But I'm mentioning this process of migrating being sort of frustrating because it was difficult to get in the kingdom. We were sitting for hours pushing the button to like migrate. And you just, migrate, okay, migrate, okay. You're just like spamming the buttons over and over and over and over. And it was just, we even had like scheduled timed migrations, but at some point we just gave up on that because like, I guess people were bringing in farms or somebody was bringing in academy accounts. I mean, you just can't control who's migrating to the kingdom if the cap is open, and you have to have the cap open over 65 million to get your big players in. So it's just like a really harrowing process where you're hoping only the right players get into the kingdom and that people aren't sending their farms, that it's all mains coming in. And at some point we just had like everybody spamming the button all at once because it was like, okay, like if we can't control person by person who's getting in because it's just too complex of an operation, then like just everybody spam. And my farm got in at the last minute. I mean, we flipped back to Imperium, and we were kind of trading off, I guess, with 256, who's now out of Imperium. We were flipping back and forth, and thankfully, we flipped out of Imperium. I actually had to drop a couple million power, so I was below the 65 million threshold, because we were just too worried about, like, opening it up to be above 65 mil. We'd flip back Imperium, so we spent some time 65 mil and under, and like the last hour or two before Arc League, I got my farm in. Thank goodness. It's really kind of more of an alt than a farm. And then the migration was just about done after a few more people joined the kingdom. Holy moly. All in all, there was only, I think, one person of the 280 plus that didn't make it in, that had been planning to come, which in the grand scheme of things, I mean, it's a bummer, but I'm definitely glad that it all freaking worked out. Which leaves us with the following. Here is the alliance power in Kingdom 254 now. And at this point, everybody should have healed back their hospital. We're looking at almost 14 billion for TR. SW, that's my alliance, is at 12.5 billion. Liv is at 12 billion. By the way, that's where Ticklefist is. We've got SX54 down at 11.3. Pub is at 11.1. And then I believe Get Wrecked is an Academy Alliance. I actually need to go look into which alliances are Academy Alliances, but that's TRV at 7.69 billion power. So I am really hyped to see how it's going to be having 5 to 6 alliances that are like fighting alliances that all play the game with the same mindset of like, yeah, we're going to lose all our troops every KVK because anything that you wouldn't be willing to send to die is actually just dead weight. I think it's going to be really interesting to be in a kingdom where everybody operates that way. And look, that's not a knock against 1075 at all. I'm very happy with what we had built there. I'm very happy with how we had evolved from like where we started. But at the end of the day, like people were giving me a hard time, but like it's not my job to be a leader in the kingdom. It isn't. That's not it. That's the thing I was doing for fun, and I just didn't have time to do it. And I was spending just an outrageous amount of time doing it. And it had to stop for me. It like actually just had to stop for me, which was a huge driver for this migration. And so I'm really hyped to be in a situation where now I don't have leadership obligation. Yeah, there's stuff I'll help with because I'm going to want to weigh in. And I'm just not going to sit on the sidelines. But I'm not the person anymore who has to be the quarterback. I'm not the person who has to carry the ball and come hell or high water and bring that damn thing to the finish line or to the goal post. Like, I don't have to do that anymore. And that is really going to be game-changing for me and this channel because finally I can focus on, like, actually doing content creator things, leveling up the channel, not just, like, struggle to get the video out for the day and then do a million other things. Like, it's a reprioritization for me in the right way, which I'm very much looking forward to. My final piece of advice, if you're migrating into a kingdom that has a limited migration window, a very limited migration window like we had, it is as follows. First of all, it's going to take many multiples longer than you think to actually migrate into the kingdom, even with scheduled time slots, because people, they're just going to be sending their farms, or people you just can't control who's getting in when you raise the cap. That's not actually an option. So set aside just an absolutely massive amount of time. Try to have people that can be online for longer, sort of start at a different time. So, for example, we started at like 10 o'clock at night my time, and I was still trying to get into the kingdom at like 2 a.m. my time with my farm. And at some point it was like, okay, I'll just wake up and hopefully I get in. And if I do, I do, and I don't, I don't. And thankfully I did get into the kingdom, but like, you get the idea. Set aside a lot of time and try to stagger the people that can be up for a while at a different time. And then once you get into the kingdom, freaking celebrate. Because, man, it's awesome to be here. Until next time, you have fun smashing your enemies.